Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Lunch and Learn. My name is Katrina O'Connor, and I'm a Programs Coordinator here at Enterprise Nation. For those of you attending a Lunch and Learn for the first time, Enterprise Nation is a vibrant community platform for startups and small businesses. This Lunch and Learn session is brought to you in partnership with Constant Contact. They provide email and digital marketing solutions that help small firms stand out and grow. We've teamed up with the Constant Contact team as they are fantastic supporters of small business and have a wealth of marketing expertise to share. I'm pleased to introduce Lucy Werner, founder of Hype Yourself. She will take you through her process of building a Substack that not only generates revenue, but also strengthens your personal brand. If you have any questions throughout the webinar, please post them in the chat and we'll do our best to answer them at the end of the session. Today's webinar will be recorded and we'll send a follow-up email to you with the recording and further resources later today. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Lucy.
Thank you so much, Katrina. Hi, everybody. So nice to see you all today. It would be great, just as a quick intro, as I'm saying hi to you all, if you want to put in the chat what your name is, where you are in the UK, and even if we've met before, because it's always nice to know if you've got friendly faces in the room. I'm going to start with a quick intro of myself in case you don't know me. Like Katrina said, my name is Lucy Werner. I have been working on and off with Enterprise Nation for the last 10 years in various different forms. I started off 10 years ago actually from my own consultancy, which used to be called The One. It was the PR and branding agency. And actually I've pivoted over the last 10 years and I've now probably smaller than I've ever been, going from agency owner in London, and I'm now a solopreneur based in rural France, but I still predominantly work with UK audiences and supporting UK small businesses. My mission hasn't changed. It's always been to champion small business, get the underdogs out there and show you all how to hype yourself. So nice to see you all in the chat. Thank you so much. We've got a nice mixture of regions. We've got another international here, Troy Ford in Spain. So great to see you all there as well. So I'm going to talk you through today my Substack called Hype Yourself, which is actually based loosely, the idea came from my book Hype Yourself of the same name. I've written 3 business books in my life, one with the co-founder of my children, which is more about branding, but I specialize in PR and self-promotion. So I'm going to go through 3 kind of core areas in the next half an hour. So we're going to start with looking at how we can position your newsletter for growth. We're going to look at how I monetize my Substack and how you might be able to monetize your Substack. And then last but not least, we are also going to look at how you can build an engaged and loyal audience. And I'm going to show you the behind the scenes of my Substack, which not many people get to see. So you really are, you're getting the scoop today, people. You're getting the scoop. So before I get started, actually, can you give me on a scale of 1 to 10 how well you know Substack? So 1 being, I'm a complete beginner, tell me everything, I barely even know what it's about. 10 being like, I'm an expert, frankly, I should be giving the session. Okay, good. Lots of 1s and 2s. Ruth, Grace, Helen, Sandra, Francesca's a 7. I mean, Francesca, at this point, you probably could come on board and co-present with me. Stick there, I might bring you in later. Ruth Ramsey, hello Ruth Ramsey. I do have some friends here. Ruth Ramsey's a 6 out of 10. Adrian Walsh 1 to 2. I wonder if this is the same Adrian Walsh that I knew from my childhood or a different Adrian Walsh, who knows. Right, let's get onto the crux of it, okay? So before I started on Substack, I actually had a little talk with the partnerships manager at Substack at the time. She did a 1-hour session and she talked through a few things that I really took on board that I wanted to share with you today. So this is just my profile. The very first thing you want to think about is your name. Now, I've actually taken the name Hype Yourself. She recommended that you should actually put your own name in there. So normally my handle on everything is Lucy Werner PR, but because I've always tried to get the Hype Yourself domain on all platforms, I just sort of snagged that. The first thing you need to be thinking about is your handle, right? Then you need to be thinking about the name of your publication. And you don't need to stress about this too much because you can change it later. And I do think a lot of people get kind of hung up on the what to name it. But I wouldn't worry too much, like I said, because if you worry about that, you're not going to progress anywhere. And then there's going to be a few things. I'll just show you kind of where you start off, when you're in the publisher dashboard and you go into, that you're really getting the inside already. If you go into settings, you're going to see the basics here. So they're going to ask you for a logo. If you don't have a logo, you don't need to worry about that. My partner always says a beautiful font is always better than a mediocre logo. So as long as you have a name for your publication, you can just have it as a font here. You have your publication name, you have a bit of your description, and then you can select which categories you want to put it into. Now, like I said to you, I used to be an agency owner. I've now moved more into the online education space. I've actually selected business as my main category and then education. But if you click down, you can see there's all sorts of other things. So depending on what your business might be, you might want to be fashion and beauty. If you're, if you're a product-based business, you might want to be music. If you're in sustainability, perhaps you want to be sat in climate and environment. You can choose whatever you like, and try and choose, the two that are closest to you. And again, you can change that. So I deliberately play in business because I know it's a difficult category to get into. So I like that challenge. But sometimes I do think, oh, maybe I should be education up front. So we start off, so you got your name, got your publication name, and then I also kind of want you to start thinking about what types of format you could be showing. So if we go back to this original screen that I started on, here's my publication. And when you click on it, you can see there's podcast. So you could just put video or audio podcast on there. I have some articles that are more like directories. So this is a list of outlets looking for guests, for example. And so here you have it's more of a listicle format. I also do a lot of personal essays. So these typically are more of a, personal essay format. It's more long form. I have a lot more photos in there. It's a bit more like a diary post. And then the crux of what I send out at the moment are PR recipes. These typically have the same format, and I give an idea each week to help people in how to promote themselves. So I have my kind of recipe ingredients up here, and then I put it out there. So for you, one of the first places I think you can start is actually thinking about what is my subject area that I want to be talking about, and what kinds of format do I want to be doing. So could you be doing essays? Could you be doing case studies? Could you be doing interviews? If you're a product-based business, I'm just wondering whether or not you could think about sending out behind the scenes of how you're building your product that week. Perhaps you're talking about other product-based business owners in interviews, lots of different ways. Sam's just said, is this your profile? My profile doesn't look like that on my iPad. Do I need to be working from my laptop instead? I've never actually used the Substack from my iPad, so I don't know how differently it appears on the different ones. But yeah, this is my current profile that I'm showing to you as well. So we've got our name, we've got our handle, we've kind of got our niche, and then we've started to think about the format that we're doing. And then I also want to get you to think about cadence, as in how often you are sending it out. I think this is the most important point. So Substack for me is like a media outlet. You can create any kind of content you want. It could be in the newsletter format. It could be audio content. It could be podcasts. Like I said, if we start here, we go to the publisher dashboard, as if I'm going to create a new post for you. You've got these options here. So you could be doing a text post, like I said. You could be doing a video post. So often I do a monthly live session, which I do as a video post, or you could just do an audio post where you're only sending out a sound. These two are more very internal Substack kind of functions. So notes, I guess, is a little bit like Substack answer to Twitter. So if I wanted to create a new note, I can put in whatever it is I want to say to the world here. I can upload a video, or I can upload a photo and then post it. And then you've also got chat. So if I want to just talk to my subscribers, I can either make it for all of my subscribers or my paid subscribers. And you can set up the chat here. You can see here's what we've all been sort of chatting about earlier, but I can start a new thread here to my audience and encourage them to communicate with me. So there is this sort of two-way street as part of this kind of media publication that we've got going. The other thing is, unlike a newsletter where really if you're emailing it out, people are just replying to you, what's nice about Substack is the people on there can actually respond to you in the comments. So if we look at a recent post, you can see the kind of the comment number here. So let's have a look at this one, because this was obviously a bit of a popular one in terms of the chat. So if we click on the post, we can see everybody getting involved in the chat underneath. And it's a great opportunity then for me to engage with my audience. So it's more for me than just a newsletter platform. It's a way of actually building a community and really owning my own sort of media outlet. So James has asked, I currently have an email newsletter for my business. Would you suggest merging the two together or keeping them separate? So I would actually say you could try moving it over here. And when I get to the sort of the third section about building and engaging a loyal audience, I'll show you why. So I'll make a note, James, to come back to you when we get to that section. Okay, now I want to talk about monetization. So money is obviously like the big question here. I just want to dispel a few myths about the dashboard. So here you can see in the back end, I've been running a paid Substack for 1 year. So this is going to look like the gross annualized revenue, but that's not actually, you know, if everybody who's paying me today carries on paying, that would be what the total is. But also Substack do take a 10% cut and Stripe fees are 3%. And then you've obviously got tax after that. So I'm not actually making $44,000 a year before you all get excited and think it's a quick rich thing. But I want to talk about the advice I received before I started and the advice that I would then in turn give to you that's worked well for me, which is as soon as I started, I turned on paid. Okay, as soon as I started, I turned on paid. And I told my existing audience, I'm moving you from MailChimp to Substack. For free readers, you're going to carry on going to get a monthly newsletter. And for paid readers, I'm going to send you something each week, which is going to be some PR tips, a prompt, or a directory, or a personal essay about me going from agency owner in London to moving to the south of France. If you want to come with me now, I am starting at this pilot price, and I would love for you to come on board. And I managed to get 100 people to come on in the first month, which then made me a Substack bestseller. So I turned on paid on my Substack on October 22nd last year, 2023. Before that, I had a newsletter for 4 years on MailChimp, and I was sending out a free monthly newsletter, which I built over 4 years. It also was collecting people who had bought my books. And I also occasionally did lead magnets. So I was creating a free download or a free resource in return for email addresses. And that's how I built up from 0 to 5,000 in the 4 years before I moved over to Substack. Now, there's a few different ways you can do the monetization. I'm just going to show you again in the settings section. Here we have got payments. So you can set a monthly plan price, an annual plan. So for me, you get a slight discount if you're buying annually. And you can have a founding plan. I don't currently have one. I did start to think about having one. When I started, sorry, I did have a founding plan, which was to have a one-to-one with me. But actually, I sold more than I was expecting. And I'm only part-time at the moment because I've got 3 children under the age of 7. And I'm a French student. So I didn't want to get fully booked out of doing one-to-ones. But there's lots of different ways you could do that. Now, I mix up my content. So if you see here on my publication, over here, I'm going to click on Hype Yourself. I have this free to read section up here. So when you land on my page, It's very obvious what is free. And then the PR recipes and pictures and the notes from France and the live classes are all for my paid subscribers. So in some instances, I will maybe give a bit of information for free and then paywall it further down. But I give everybody the opportunity to have a 7-day free preview so that they can get to know my writing if they don't know me, and then make the decision to upgrade or not. Now, I know a lot of writers who have all of their content for free, and it's optional if you want to pay them. Specifically, people, I guess, who are more on the creative side of things as well. So there's a lot of non-fiction writers, fiction writers, poets, people who talk about creativity, all these sorts of things, where it's completely free and you can just donate if you want to. I know also people who are completely on the other end of the spectrum, where every single thing is paid and you can only pay annually. I guess on pricing as well, the other note I would give is that I went for a while thinking, actually, I'm not a creative writer. I'm a business service and I'm getting business advice. So I'm going to try and charge more for this because it's like a membership, because you get a monthly live with me as well. And I tried to put it higher. And actually, because I'm growing on Substack, and because that is the platform where I'm growing and engaging with the most audience, the average spend of a monthly newsletter there is between £5 to £6 a month. So I do think if you go too much higher than that, it can be difficult to move up. So actually, I moved mine back down again. And since then, I've had a sustained engagement from people coming through. The other thing is, your newsletter could be completely free. You don't need to monetize it at all, particularly if you're using it as a new business tool. And you could just be using it as something to upsell a workshop or, you know, a product that you've got later on. It doesn't have to be something that you monetize. I just decided, because I'd been writing so many articles on Medium and I've been writing so many business books, that I really wanted to have a go at, instead of doing online courses and online services, I wanted to try and have a go at monetizing the newsletter instead. I'm just going to check if I missed anything in the chat. My business is predominantly business analysis and change management. Could I use Substack as a place to offer an alternative approach to those topics? And could this be linked to LinkedIn so I could use Substack posts on LinkedIn, etc.? Yeah, so Ruth, if you follow me on LinkedIn, you'll see that my LinkedIn banner actually promotes people to come to my Substack, and everything I write, I promote. Everything I write on Substack, I promote on LinkedIn. So when I first monetized it as well, I was promoting it heavily on LinkedIn and Instagram and bringing that audience over. And because the people already knew me there, they were happy to then move up on the payment as well. If we are totally new but can provide resources, would you build a following first? Absolutely not. I would build the following on Substack, and I'll tell you why when we get to the third point about building and engaging a loyal audience. Francesca says she's just trying to move her Substack to monetization. She's been writing for almost 2 years, but all for free. She's now ready to turn on paid. What are my thoughts on the best way to do it to maximize conversion from old users? So Francesca, I would definitely use that. I'm turning on paid. This is what you get as you're paid. Because you've been with me for 2 years, I'm going to give you an introductory rate or an introductory offer. That's going to, because when I started, I was charging £5 a month. So anybody who paid £5 a month, it doesn't matter what price I move it up to later, they will only ever pay £5 a month. So essentially, you are rewarding the people who've been with you for the longest amount of time, which I think is a really nice thing to do, you know, the historical customers or clients. The other thing is, I'm not a big kind of flash sale discount person. Lots of people do that, you know, there's Black Friday, January sales, it's your business birthday, whatever it is. So you do have moments where you can kind of create these sales moments as well, which can work brilliantly. Or you can offer discounts to people. So you might go, like today I'm talking to you guys at Enterprise Nation, so I could create a discount code for Enterprise Nation. What I'm actually doing, and it will be on the link in the end, is giving you all 30 days free access. So there's lots of different kind of ways that you can do it. How how do I compare Substack with other platforms such as Medium, Patreon, and traditional email? So I have been on Medium, I've not been on Patreon, and I was using traditional email. Because I'm only selling my Substack, my newsletter, I don't need all the functionalities that MailChimp offers. But if you need a lot of customer intel, you want to see what the open rates are specifically for a specific product, because you might want to upsell it more or have any kind of funnel system in, then it's not as good. It's very basic. For a beginner starting out in kind of the newsletter world, it's very easy to use. But anybody who I think has used a more in-depth customer analysis tool might find the functionality a bit difficult. I do know some people who kind of worked their way around this, where they'll kind of trigger a new subscriber email in their, in their own system to then send them an introductory funnel themselves. So there is the kind of the ability to bolt on in that way, but within Substack itself, it's not there. In terms of monetizing, I wrote 100 articles on Medium and probably made in total about $30. And I don't have access to their email addresses. It's not as easy. Whereas I feel like the monetization for me has been easier on Substack. And I can also chat to the people who are paying me off platform. So I hope that helps on that question. Would it work as a long form piece? Would it work as a long form piece of Substack? I don't know if there was a first part to your question, Alex. So I'll come back to that one. And so, right, for the third section, because I just want to make sure we get through all of the content, I want to talk about building an engaged and loyal audience on Substack. So the main way I've grown on Substack is through recommendations. And I just want to show you what that looks like. So when I sign on, if I read a publication, I can choose if I want to recommend it. So if you look here, I've grown 5,000 subscribers in the last year. 4,000 of those subscribers have come from recommendations within Substack itself. So for me, that is the beauty of this platform, is that I'm not growing. I might be bringing my audience over from LinkedIn and Instagram, but it's these 178 Substacks recommending me where the growth's really happening. If you look here, you can see which publications are sending the most people to me, but equally, the Substacks I recommend, how many people I'm sending to them. And then this gives me a good idea of people that I could collaborate with. So I could write something for them, or they could write something for me. Substack often recommends that you look at the top 10 people who you recommend or who are recommending you with the highest numbers, because you're probably going to have a good audience crossover there. I can see the chat suddenly popping off here. So I don't know if there's anything on that recommendation. So yeah, the natural recommendations of Substack's great. Also, if we go to the notes, I'm just going to show you what that looks like. So if we go into the notes column here, lots of people grow through sharing notes on Substack. So here's like a few things that I've been saying. Sometimes I will see notes taking off really well, and then that might help me then attract a new audience or new paying people. And just a quick thing on the monetization as well. You can do some kind of proper analysis on this, but if I go to my posts, I can actually see which ones, if you're clicking on here, when you click on them, you can kind of see what the estimated revenue has been. So this one did particularly well. When I do any kind of like directories, they often do really well. But then there'll be other things where I may be upselling something else. So in this one, I'm talking about a workshop that I'm selling. That actually did generate some paid subscribers. I wasn't necessarily thinking of doing that. But in terms of growth, every time you're posting on your Substack, you've got that opportunity to be making money. So it's like every time I send out a newsletter, I kind of think, oh, I'm getting a mini pay rise. So yeah, foster engagement. Think about how you can put polls, how you can ask questions to get people to come in the comments to talk to you. Recommend other Substack publications. For me, I always try and champion my paid readers more than I do like Substack celebrities. But I also think it's a really nice opportunity to champion voices that don't necessarily get a lot of voices. So I do look for people who've got less than 100 subscribers and champion them. You can comment on other people's posts, you can comment on their notes. And yeah, you can constantly look at open rates. I know sometimes if I've done a dud headline, because the open rate will be worse. And in one instance, I actually reposted it about 3 or 4 months later with a different headline, and I could see the open rate was much stronger. Scarlett says, I already do a podcast. Would you recommend linking it? I don't know the podcast side of things as well, because I don't have a podcast, but yeah, I think you can link it quite easily. But if nothing else, you could also just share it rather than in the podcast section. You could share it on the news section. There are lots of stats that people who use audio and video content on Substack tend to grow quicker. Does Substack promote your contents organically? Yeah, they do in some ways. So they have what they call like a Substack recommends list. So they will pick people out who get the kind of recommended badge. And then I guess it's also asking your audience to share. So if I've got something that's a free to read, I'll often ask people if they liked it to share it. So there's one that I did in particular about for everything I know about growing a newsletter, which will probably be very helpful in terms of today, which I'll put in the chat. That's had the most shares here. That's had 60 shares. So yeah, I always think if it's something free, obviously if it's behind paywall, it's not going to get as much like curation and sharing from other people. Alexandra said, what's the optimal length for Substack posts? Should they focus on concise, valuable insights, or is it better suited for long form in-depth reads? I think that's what the beauty of Substack is that you can actually choose. There are lots of long form writers on there. There are also people sharing, you know, small poems or just doing photo posts. It's really up to you. And when it comes to like self-promotion and building your brand, I always say, like, you've got to do it in a way that feels good to you and that feels fun. So if you like sharing your voice and sharing video, then do that. But if you're somebody that actually likes to be a bit more private and hide behind the scenes, then just using the written word is great. So just to kind of sort of round off, there were 3 kind of outcomes that I wanted to get you thinking about today. One is positioning your newsletter for growth. So kind of know your topic, know your cadence. That's the most important bit. The mistake I see is people coming out of the gates all excited, trying to do it every day or every week. And it's quite weird the first time you send a newsletter out in this format. And then you think, oh, I want to do it again, because you want the sort of the dopamine hit that you get from Instagram. Sit tight. Like I started off just going monthly for 4 years before I then switched to weekly. So set your cadence. Think about your monetization strategies. Think how you can incentivize your old audience. Think in the future about any kind of key sales moments that you want to have. And also, like I said, you know, every time you email, there's effectively a kind of miniature pay rise you can get. So, you know, every email for me is a great opportunity. Or if it stresses you out, don't worry about turning on page. Just do it for the love. Build that connection, build that community, and you can speak to them later on about other things. Like for me, I always think that's another audience that I'm speaking to for reading my books. Like I try harder almost to grow my free than I do my paid, because it's, for me, my whole mission is to help people hype themselves. The more people I can get in my ecosystem, the better. And you can export the email. So you do own that data. It's not like Instagram or Facebook where if it goes down, you don't have that audience anymore. I regularly export my data as a backup, just so that if I do decide to leave Substack, I've got them later on. And then last but not least, think about how you can engage your audience, what questions you can ask them, the polls, how you can share, how you could maybe invite them to contribute to your Substack. And with that, we've got a minute to go. What if you have a number of areas of expertise? How can you organize these? Sue, I love this. I kind of feel like the portfolio person is actually perfect. You can set up I don't do this because mine's all PR, but you can actually have sections instead of just the things at the top. So when you go to your settings, you can actually section it out. So just like a newspaper has news, sport, business, you can create sections. I've lost where I am here. And in the sections, you could get people to opt in or out if they want to receive it or not when they subscribe. Francesca's putting her Substack in there, which is great. Any more? I think we're good. I think that's hit all the questions, and we were at 1 minute to go. Katrina, have I missed anything or I missed anyone?
I think it looks good. Thank you so much, Lucy. That was fantastic. And thank you so much, everybody watching in the audience. There's been some brilliant engagement, and you can see how much everybody has enjoyed the session. You're getting so much lovely feedback in the chat, so that's great to see.
Yay.
So it has gone very quickly, but we are at the end of the session. So thank you so much for joining us on today's webinar. We'll be sharing the recording and further resources in a follow-up email this afternoon. Thanks again, everyone. And thanks especially to Lucy. Thank you. Bye.